let's see, the length of the game. Okay. Oh, let me just kind of go over some basic things. It's kind of hard to imagine because we're having summer right now. Okay, but you can run into inclement weather. Generally speaking, in soccer, lightning is the only thing that stops soccer. Okay, that's a good thing to perhaps have if you can, if your kids are reasonably well behaved and they can kind of entertain themselves behind you, you can meet shortly with the parents during the first practice or the second practice and say, soccer happens unless there's lightning. Okay, and so sometimes inexperienced people don't know what to do about rain in soccer. Okay, if it is cold, okay, and it's 40 degrees and raining, which is, the kids will often love it for about 15 or 20 minutes, and then their clothes are soaked through, and then they're not so sure. Okay, that kind of stuff, as long as the kids all have rides, can be at your discretion. You know, if we get into October and we hit some weather like that, it can be up to you if you want to shorten the practice time or if you want to shorten the game time a little bit.
But you should be on the field until all the kids are left, obviously.
Yes.
Just in case.
Yeah, that's one thing that has to happen. You know, as long as they have a ride. Okay. More clothing is allowed in these little Supermod leagues than might be allowed in other ones. You want to pay attention to zippers, but generally speaking, softer hats are fine. They can, you know, maybe cram a sweatshirt underneath their t-shirt or something like that. That stuff's all fine if it makes them more comfortable. Cleats, we recommend cleats, okay, because in this kind of weather, then you can certainly get away with just a pair of running shoes, but as soon as the field gets a little wet, cleats are better, but they're not required. Okay, cleats aren't required. What's required is shin guards. Okay, they must be wearing some kind of protection. And while it's unusual for 5- and 6-year-olds to hurt each other, they can be clumsy and they can give each other some pretty hard kicks in the shins. And so that needs to be, the parents need to definitely have their kids in shin guards, and the socks are worn over the shin guard. Okay. For the length of a game, the home team coach will be responsible for setting up the field. Okay. So the home team coach, you want to arrive maybe 15 minutes early and get the field set up while everybody's drifting in for the game. Once you're up to about 10 o'clock, try and introduce yourself to the other coach, and this is where you can kind of come to an agreement on the length of the game. If the games are supposed to go from 10 to 11, well, let's say, so you got kids straggle in and you end up warming up till 5 after, okay, before you feel like you can get started. So there's 55 minutes. If you have a 5-minute halftime, then that's 50 minutes, and you can play 2 25-minute halves. But what you want to do is come to some kind of an agreement with the other coach, shake hands and introduce yourself, and just kind of figure out how that's going to work before the game goes, and then have one or the both of you keep track of time and come to a little bit of agreement. And then then everything is set ahead of time, and things just run more smoothly. What you'll have to do in the early parts of the season is you'll have to help the kids keep the game going. The ball will go into touch or out of bounds, and the kids, if they don't know, they'll just stop. Okay, the ball will stop. The game will just come to a halt. Okay, and that's where you'll need to step in and kind of say, well, the other team kicked the ball over our goal line, so what is that for us? And that's a goal kick. Okay, so then they can get the ball and put it down in the appropriate place and get the game going again with a goal kick. There'll be a fair amount of that you'll have to do, and what you'll want to do is try and get them to the point where they can keep the game going themselves. All right, as opposed to turning out a 7-year-olds who can play for the Sounders, what we really want is for them to understand how the game works, and if the ball goes out of bounds, they have an idea how to get the game going. And I'll go over, more of the specific rules in the field. Let's see, the field looks like. And so for going back to my earlier point, so for your scrimmages, okay, that's part of what you're doing during your scrimmages, is teaching them how to keep the game going. What the goal can be is the kids play 6 games. The goal can be, can I kind of sort of get them to the point where I'm off the field and they're doing the game, okay? For as far as the refereeing goes, there aren't very many intentional fouls in Supermod, but there are fouls because of clumsiness, okay? And so what you and the other coach should do is just keep an eye out for it, okay? And if something happens that does need to be called, go ahead and call it, and explain what happened. If you're on others, if I'm coaching against your team and you're coaching against me, if maybe you're down by your goal and you happen to be watching that stuff at that time, and I'll watch the stuff down here and try and be as impartial as possible, because really we want them to know what's an unacceptable tackle. If you knock someone over before you get to the ball, we want them to know that that's not a soccer play, okay? Now soccer is at the higher levels definitely a very physical game. It's just not a collision sport like American football. It's a different kind of physicality. Fewer crashes, but 6-year-olds, 5-year-olds, man, they're gonna trip over each other, and I actually find sometimes it can be a difficult game to rep, because I find myself thinking, well, do you mean to do that, or because they're all over the place with their bodies. They're hilarious. Okay. Does anybody have any questions about any of that organizational stuff for the practice?
I just have a couple administrative questions. So equipment, do we take equipment? Are we in charge of equipment for the month and a half?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, but the kids get to bring their balls with them, and just make sure they bring them back.
But in terms of the goals and stuff, we'll bring those
right.
back.
Yeah, and as far as the goals, when it starts raining, the puck goals will obviously get wet. So after the practice, would you just pop them up in your garage or someplace? Because I can clean everything, but I can't get the smell out of the puck goals. So I can bleach everything else, like your bags are clean, your cones are clean. The puck goals I can't seem to clean them very easily. So that would be really helpful if you did that.
And is there, the games and practices there'll be a bunch of teams here at once. Is there an administrator or someone else around at that time?
Yeah.
So if there's a serious injury, there'll be somebody to help out if something
actually this year, I'm going to ask, because I'm not a medical person at all, and I'll be there the first couple practices and games, but then I pretty much just stand there in the rain and everybody goes to the field they need to go to, and I'm not really needed anymore.
Okay.
But I'll have a first aid kit for Wednesday night and Thursday night, and I'm going to send out an email saying, if any of you guys know anything about, ice packs, Band-Aids are in there. That's pretty much it. A ball pump if somebody needs to blow up a ball, and gloves. And Neosporin. Pretty much we only see cuts, and it usually happens before they even get to the field. So, but.
Anything else? Okay, all right, let's head down to the field a little bit.